Okay, guys, I'm going to show you basically how Firesweep works and why it's good, how to use it properly, and also show you how to a little bit of why you should think about prioritizing which pods come in and when they come in and all that. So what I'm going to have, the scenario I'm going to have a Charybdis with Galvorback and Lorgar in it, and I'm going to have a normal Dreadclaw with Terminators in it. So through past experience, I found that when the Charybdis lands, I want Lorgar and the Galvorback to get out on the turn they arrive, because if he's inside when the Psyche phase happens, he can't cast any power. So I found that it's better to get him out immediately so that I'm able to buff the unit with psychic powers. Now the Terminators, because they don't have psychic powers, I would rather leave them in the Dreadclaw so that that protects them from enemy fire. So basically, like we were talking about before, when a Dreadclaw, whether it be Charybdis or normal Dreadclaw, comes in, it immediately hits everything with in the D3 plus 3 inch radius with a Strength 6 AP 5 hit that ignores cover. Well, what's important to note is that it's all models, friend and foe. So if I dropped in my Charybdis first and got Lorgar and the guys out, and then dropped the Terminator one in second, the second Dreadclaw coming in, it will hit everything, including my Galvorback that got out. So in this scenario, I want to make sure that I drop the Terminator pod in first, because they're going to stay in, and then when the Charybdis comes in, there's no danger of it hurting anything but potentially the other drop pod, because it will hit it. But hitting the other drop pod is not a huge concern, because it being armor 12 and it only being strength 6 when I hit it, I have to roll a 6 just to glance it, which isn't enough to roll a damage result or destroy it. So it's a very mitigated risk. It's a lot better than having guys out on the table and then having them take the hit. So what we'll do, we deep strike the Terminators, Dreadclaw first. Let's say we want to put them right here. We'll roll scatter for that. So it scatters 4 inches straight that direction, which would put it basically on top of the tank, so it can't scatter, it can't be there because it has inertial guidance. It'll minimize its distance, so it'll essentially end 1 inch away from the Rhino. I would then do my hits, my free hits. I rolled a 2, so it's everything within 5 inches of this takes the hits that we were just talking about. So just for the sake of fun, let's say it kills 2 of these tactical or these support Marines, and maybe it glances the Rhino, puts a hull point on it, something like that. Then I'll drop in my Charybdis. Now that it's already done the Heat Blast attack, I know that the Galvorback aren't going to have to take the hits. We'll say I drop it in next to it. The other thing about dropping pods like this, whichever pod that you're most concerned about hitting accurately, if you drop more pods before it, it sticks more obstacles around so that you can you can basically kind of create your own little corral. So when you drop this pod in here, now it mitigates the chance of it scattering that direction, because it's almost no way I can scatter without landing on something, which then it would then minimize it. So say I had another pod, I could drop it here, and another one I could drop it here, and it leaves a perfect pocket where this essentially is going to go there without scattering. So that's something to keep in mind when you use drop pods. The more you place, the more chances of other ones coming in later are of scattering if you put them near each other. But, so this thing will land, you'll roll scatter, it's going to go 8 inches this way, which once again puts it directly on top of the Javelin, which it can't do. So it just instead moves 1 inch away from the Javelin and then stops because of the inertial guidance. This tree is in the way. Then, like I stated before, we'll get these Galvorback guys out. I'm not going to go crazy with how I place them. I may not, in a normal game, place them this way. Oh, before these guys get out, this thing immediately does its heat attack, like the other one did. So it goes off 4 inches. So let's say it hits this Javelin, stuns it, so it can't shoot next turn. That's great. And let's say it kills even another Marine. So then these guys will get out, just like so. Lorgar will be able to cast his psychic powers, do all his space wizard stuff that he's known for doing. Now these guys are going to have to, now after the movement phase is done, if these guys have an augury scanner, now they get to intercept, which you could see by dropping 2 Dreadclaws in and me killing a couple guys. It's much diminished the squad's firepower in order to shoot at me. And then if they decide to shoot at the claws themselves, these guys are still able to jink. Now keep in mind, if the Charybdis jinks while these guys are shooting, because this happens in the movement phase, these guns will snap fire. So it's a good idea if you jink because they fire at it due to intercept and you're already snap firing anyway. I personally normally would forgo the shooting and then use the razzle dazzle to get this thing out so that it survives and can later on go into flyer mode and be good anti-air or do fire sweeps. So let's pretend this happened. Like I said, this thing loses a hull point. This thing's stunned, so it can't move and it has snap fire. These guys fired, didn't really do much. Scorpus Whirlwind maybe fired at these Gal Vorback, maybe killed a guy or two, whatever. Probably not, but maybe. Then on the Blood Angel, so that goes down, whatever. But let's say at the beginning of their turn, they also had a flyer come in. So the way flyers work, they have to come in a minimum of 18 inches. So let's say this guy brought this flyer in here to shoot at some stuff in my backfield, or maybe he brings it in at a steeper angle to shoot at the Gal Vorback or whatever like this, something like this. So when it becomes my turn again, if these things survive, I can now fire sweep with them. So the way fire sweep works is I choose to fire sweep. I literally just move the model like it normally would in the movement phase, and because these are fast skimmers, they can move up to 12 inches. So let's say I wanted to fire sweep at this Charybdis, I could move it 12 inches this direction, and as it moves, it's going to pass over this now stunned Javelin and this squad again, so it comes here. Each of these squads now takes a D6 hit, so this Javelin would only take 1 hit. These guys would take 3 hits at Strength 5, AP 5. Now it is important to note that these fire sweep attacks are 1 strength weaker than when it originally lands. After completing the movement, this now has to, because of the rule, the fire sweep rule, this has to roll a die 6, and on a roll of a 1, it takes a damage result. So I rolled a 2, so I'm good. If I had rolled a 1, it's just as if it had taken a penetrating hit. So you just roll on the damage result. Now, because it's AP dash, the worst that can happen is it becomes immobilized. So, you know, I resolve damage. Maybe I kill another Marine. Maybe I do a whole point there. Maybe I don't, whatever. The important thing to note is this happens in the movement phase, and it's not a shooting attack. It simply just states when it moves over a model, you can do these hits. So that's very important because it works on flyers. So if this guy brought this flyer in here, you can then move this Dreadclaw 12 inches, jumping over this flyer and this Rhino, placing it there, or you could either go over the Rhino and the flyer or the flyer and the Scorpus there and land on the other side, and then the flyer takes D6 hits, which I rolled a 6. So imagine this thing's only 12, 10, 10. This attack always hits the vehicle on its weakest armor and ignores cover. So this guy can't even jink. So now I'm going to pick up 6 dice and roll them, and every 5 or 6 I get is going to put hull points on this 2 hull point flyer. So these are very underrated anti-air because most flyers have at least one facing that's armor 10, and a lot of them that are popular, like the Lightning, the Avenger, the Xiphon, things like that, are only 2 hull points, so it doesn't really take much to kill them. Now this Charybdis, the cool thing about it is when it goes into flyer mode, it has all these missiles it can shoot, so it's good anti-air on its own. So if this thing were alive, I typically wouldn't have fire swept with it. I probably would have put it in flyer mode and tried to go after, you know, his flyer, or, you know, move, like we talked about. It more than likely, if it lived, I would have razzle-dazzled it back here, and then he'd have flown in, and then I would have been in flyer mode, and then I'd probably come over here and shoot at the flyer anyway. But that just kind of shows you how fire sweep works, how to use it. It does work on flyers. It's really awesome. So I got one more trick to show you guys with Dreadclaws in the next video.